that Nick Wright, who I actually like, had said that, and even his fellow co-hosts were flummoxed by his take, that if you flip-flop the two, the Niners would win a Super Bowl with Baker Mayfield, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would suck ass and be drafting high. I think it's pretty clear that if you put Brock Purdy, the guy that we've seen the overwhelming majority of the year, beside a couple drives, right? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are winning that division. They would win 9 games. Like, this version of Brock Purdy is a Pro Bowl player. So it's not as much about the take, but just in general, like, the one bit major difference today is Brock Purdy, the 7th rounder. Now, this guy hasn't been, quote unquote, the number 1 pick in a while, right? He's been traded. He's on a new team for $4 million. So it's like Trey Lance was the number 3 overall pick. Now he's a 3rd string. Like, things change. But like, a major, major difference in that game. Because you watch the Bucs, and I've been saying this, like, when I watched them early in the season, they're a little older, but like White, Vita Vea, Mike Evans, like, they got Wirfs. How many guys would the Niners fucking love to have on their squad? I know one thing they would like to do, have a little redo on the Kinlaw-Wirfs decision. Vita Vea, what did, who's called? Was it Moose Johnson?
It was Moose, yeah.
When he's like, God, you get Kyle going on Vita Vea, you can't shut up.
Yeah.
And because he's like, God, we were hoping Kinlaw would be like half as good as him. And
right.
Didn't quite work out. Or Hargrave, we paid about $40 million. We're hoping something like that. But the point is, like, that team is talented. Like, that team has a lot of good players. And the quarterback is just a roller coaster ride. And Purdy today, I know he had literally the perfect rating game. I don't even know what that means, but he's just a really, really good player. And this is the thing. It shouldn't be that polarizing to talk about Brock Purdy. No one's saying that he's fucking Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady. But relative to the rest of the league, he's really good. I don't know if he's going to be some all-time great star. We got a long way to go. People comparing him to Joe Montana. But this version that we've seen in 2023 is a high-end Pro Bowl guy. Not like the Tyler Huntley, Derek Carr Pro Bowls, where you get in like the 8th guy of your conference. Like a top 3 guy. He could be a top 3 Pro Bowl pick. Him, Dak, and Jalen. And Jared. Jared threw 3 picks today, but
21-25 for 333, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 158.3 quarterback rating. Even he admitted after the game, I'm not sure exactly what goes into that. First time it's happened for a Niners quarterback since 89. Same. Montana and Young, the other two, they did it in the same year. That was a good little note from Joe Davis. So I saw the Nick Wright clip as well. Even Chris Broussard was, what'd you say, flustered? Even Broussard was like, I'm a basketball guy, but that's insane.
Well, all 4 guys on the set were looking at him like it was stupid.
Well, part of it is you're comparing him to, like, it's Baker you're talking about, right? You're talking about Baker Mayfield. Put Baker on this team. And Baker,
but you got. I don't know if you know the origin of his take. Like, he's an anti-Purdy. He thinks Purdy stinks. Like, he's been one of the guys that thinks Purdy's very overrated. I listened to Ethan had him on, and like, he's one of those. It's one of those things which I never understand in sports. After a while, we all have takes that are dumb, and then things change, and it's like, yeah, this guy's actually better than we thought, or this guy sucks. Who cares? Yeah. I don't get it.
No, but no, you're right. I agree with you. I also think that you never know, like, when you're doing Nick Wright's job, I never quite know who people are reacting to when you say somebody's overrated. Well, which exact take on Brock is he reacting to? Because there are some, I felt like there have been Brock takes over the last several months that are like way too far, right? I remember 5 weeks in, people were saying we shouldn't even have a debate about Brock Purdy anymore. And I said, well, that's crazy. I mean, it's like careers go longer than a season. So yeah, I'm pretty sure we can keep talking about whether he's good or not, and that's fine, or how good he is. I think your point is it's not about whether he's good or not. It's about, well, how good is he? Where's his ceiling? Whatever. But really, when you think about it, the Nick Wright comment was almost a perfect comment to talk about, because he was just talking specifically about how you win a Super Bowl with this team this year. And I think Brock has definitely answered, whatever his career turns out to be, he has without question answered the question, is he a good enough player to be the quarterback of a Super Bowl champion 49er team in 2023? Is he a good enough player to take the Texans to the championship? Irrelevant. Is he a good enough player to win this team a Super Bowl? And the answer, it doesn't mean he's good. The answer is yes. He is, without a doubt, a good enough quarterback to win the Super Bowl with the 2023 San Francisco 49ers. There's no doubt. There is no doubt about it. And I think the thing that's made it complicated is how good his talent is. And that's why around him, that's why the Bucs are interesting, because the Bucs have good players.
Yeah.
And Baker kills them. He should have thrown 7 interceptions today, John. Truly, 7 interceptions in the game today.
Throws are pretty spiral. I was throwing pretty spiral.
I like, Bosa came over and like had some words of encouragement. Kittle said something post game about, Kyle. The one thing with Baker, he's a competitor. Blocked Nick on a run play. He's an NFL player, but he is what I think. Like when we would start talking about Brock, and you get like some Iowa State fans in the chat over the last several months, Brock would throw a pick, and some Iowa State fans would be like, "Oh, there's our guy." I think Baker is kind of what at the beginning of the year I was a little afraid. Like, is this Brock? Can you be a guy without a plus arm and be a gunslinger and not make a ton of mistakes?
It's hard. It's hard. I would say you probably can't.
Unless you're just mental.
I thought Baker has a good arm, like on the drive throws. Like, to me, he's got a stronger arm than Purdy.
When you say drive throws, you mean like when he's really able to get into it?
Yeah, I'm just saying when his feet are planted and he can just drive like on an in cut, on an out cut, he can drive the ball. He throws a beautiful spiral. He's just, he's been turnover prone in his career. But regardless, like one of the reasons where he fails, right? He'll throw a lot of turnovers. He doesn't give you a lot of wow stuff anymore that Purdy does. Purdy's a better athlete. Purdy back-to-back weeks has hit 2 passes to Kittle and then today to Ayuk on essentially go routes. I know Kittle's technically wasn't because he kind of ran around. Did the 49ers literally haven't hit in the Kyle Shanahan era? They never hit that fucking pass. One, they don't throw it that often, but when they do and they get a one-on-one situation, they have never hit that. And they have had teams that, we're talking a franchise that over the last 5 years have won 6 playoff games, and they can't run that play. Like one of the most basic plays of football, just like the go route down the sideline or just a sideline pass in one-on-one
over the top sideline ball. Yeah.
He's hit it twice perfectly. The Kittle one was more impressive in the sense that he was like, there were guys right in his face. This one is just pure football. Can you just hit that guy? Hit him fucking in stride. To me, if it's Debo or Kittle, right, they do the Deion Sanders at like the 20-yard line. And Ayuk just walked in the end zone, did a cool little dance.
I thought he also threw a really good – he put a perfect ball on Ayuk earlier in the game that had a defensive holding on it. Jacoby Dean. It was like the second series of the game. Remember, left sideline, Ayuk off his fingertips, but Jacoby Dean got called for a defensive pass interference. But the ball was actually in the perfect spot. So he threw 2 of those balls today.
Yeah.
Darnold didn't one preseason game, but, took the Niners a long time. They're not good at it. They're just, as an organization, they don't do it. In camp, they don't do it. They just don't do it.
Well, I'll give you a number. I just looked it up because like how many – because Ayuk's stats are weird. He has these huge impacts on games, but his numbers are like 5 for 75, right? It's not – he's
5 for –
he had 5 for 150.
I mean, the touchdown 76, longest in the NFL this year.
But if you watched the game, you'd be like, "Oh, he had 9 for $140," right? But that's what he feels like. Brandon Ayuk, while only 43 catches on the season, has 830 yards.
Wow!
And to me, one number when I looked up Purdy's stats when the game was over, when it was like 27-14, even though it kind of went back and forth a little bit after that, he was 19 of 22. And this is the other number that always stands out for Purdy. He's never, you look at some of these quarterbacks throughout the day, if you're just watching football, it's like 7 yards an attempt, 6 yards attempt. When they're really shitty and everyone's making fun of, like when I can tell people are making fun of a quarterback, like a Zach Wilson or a Carr, it'll be like 4 yards an attempt. When I screenshotted 19 and 22, it was 14 and a half yards an attempt. Every single game is high. And that's where, Brandon Ayuk's going to probably end the season if he stays healthy, 75 catches, but he's going to have like 1,400 yards. And a lot of guys with 1,400 yards, I would imagine usually like 93 catches. And one thing Ayuk right now is when the ball leaves his hand and he's going deep to Ayuk, throwing to Ayuk, it is typically like 15 to 20-yard plays. It's explosive first downs. That, to me, the offense, because McCaffrey early on in this game looked just freaking awesome. It's like they added Christian McCaffrey, who's still a star, and they upgraded a quarterback so much. No wonder their team is so much more explosive. Like they had Kittle and Debo before. Like they've had Trent Williams for a while. But now they have a good quarterback, and they have Christian McCaffrey. They're just dramatically better on offense, right? When everyone's on the field. It's unstoppable.
It ended up at 13.3
That's high.
yards per attempt. This is from PFF Jeff Deeney, who I know always feeds Papa good stats. Jacksonville was 11.4. Cincy was 11.8. Those are all high numbers.
Hell yeah. Because I saw Todd Bowles. One of his quotes was in his post-game press conference was like, I thought we like played our ass off. And I agree. I thought they came to play hard. Like they were, this wasn't just, you got a team that's probably not going to make the playoffs start laying down. Like that team fought. They're
and
good
they got
players.
Multiple, to your point, like they got multiple, you just look up, they got multiple good players, good weapons on offense. Like guys, you get the ball in their hands, they can make a play.
Yeah. Baker battles, like they said.
Baker battles. Yeah, he'll help you out too, but he battles.
And to me, Purdy is just, since that bye week, these last 2 weeks is just, it's not, this isn't real football, right? Going 19 of 22 during stretches of games is just not normal for 315 yards.
Yeah.
He ended up with like 40,
330,
whatever. Okay. But this is where I can live with a pick, ideally not in the last 5 minutes of a tie game, but you can throw a pick in the second quarter if you're giving me 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Right.
Like, welcome to fucking Brett Favre's career. Rodgers is a bad example because he didn't throw picks. But a lot of Peyton Manning threw picks. Like you can throw picks. Give the touchdowns. It's what we didn't get with Jimmy. You never got the balancing act. What's this guy going to end up with right now? 32 touchdown passes? Probably not because they'll run the ball.
Well,
Kyle will throw it with them, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Seattle lost, but you're still going to play games where you're going to have to make plays to win. I think,
Niners are back in first place.
Niners are back in first place. Rams helped out. Missed a 55-yard field goal. The Seahawks. Drew Lock got to play a little bit through a pick. 21-25. I don't know how often that ends up in 333. Sometimes 21-25. Like you're not, to your point, you're not throwing it 13 yards per attempt. So you get 21-25. It's gonna be like 250, right?
I honestly, Derek and Alex, it felt like had a lot of like 20 of 27s, 21 of 26 for $188. Right. And they would win the game and they'd be efficient. And they got when Derek was playing well, Alex, a lot of his career once he got with Andy, because the knock on them is like, well, they're not doing anything down the field. That is not Purdy's problem at all. And I think I think going through some of that shit that he went through can only help you, right? Making the poor decisions, screwing up. I was watching Michigan yesterday, JJ McCarthy, who's kind of coming back to earth, doesn't look that good.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get any better as a player when you're just constantly kicking the shit at everybody? How can you get prepared for tight games, right? And I think, and even Fred said this weeks ago, like, sometimes it's good to kind of get in the ugly, right? Because this is not normal. Even today, it would have been one thing to be a 40-10, but you had to work a little bit. It was a healthy work. Right now, you lost a player, which sucks, but you got tested. Like guys had to get some legit action on both sides of the ball. Christian, you saw how mad he was when he got stuff. Like it was never. I didn't feel in the balance, but I kept doing the math in my head. Well, it's not like totally over yet. Right?
Yeah. Well, I think what you're describing is like Dallas. Like I was watching Dallas today, thinking they're kind of like a top end college football team.
I didn't watch one
Panthers in front of them. Oh, they're going to treat them like Georgia State. Like you give them the Giants, they're going to kick their ass, right? But to your point, like that's not, and you get credit for that too. Like you love the Niners.
It's why Dallas got credit in the loss to the Eagles, right? It's like, God, they never play that close.
Yeah.
They never look that good in a loss.
But they're not good at we've seen it repeatedly. They're not good at the end of those games. They don't manage the clock well. They don't make plays in the right spots. They don't play button-down football. But they will be they are every year you look up, you're like, top 5 team. They go into the CFP this year, and then they get to they're kind of like Michigan, maybe. We'll find out. But it feels like maybe they're a little like Michigan, the old Dallas Cowboys. I think there's some similarities, big games between McCarthy and Harbaugh. Rather have Jim, but I think there's something there. What do you think the game started, like, to what you said about Brock and the struggles? I think it was just as much about, like, how I feel about him than it was even for him. Like, he came out unfazed. I heard Kawakami ask this question of Kyle Sunday post-game, and we've talked about it a lot. Like, how would he come out of the bye week after he had those back-to-back bad late game situations? And he came out unfazed, just chucking the ball. And I thought again today, the first drive, it's going to get tipped sometimes. Maybe it'll get picked occasionally. but his like middle of the field over the linebacker throw is just, it's like his bread and butter. He's really good at that. Kyle gets some wide open guys plenty, but he is really good at that throw. And I mean, you watch college football, like you don't see that throw a lot. And even in the NFL, it's a dangerous throw because you got to drop it in front and behind. And he throws that ball really well. He just throws that ball really well. So
I mean, layering the ball, I'd say, is a huge point of emphasis for him, right? Of success, the layered throw.
Would you agree? It's just a harder. It's not a typical. Most guys don't make it look as consistently good as he does.
Well, the good guys do, right?
Yeah, the good guys,
the high end players do, yes. And I'd say the guys that fail, right? I mean, the high picks that fail, Trey Lance, Mitch Trubisky, like they can't make that throw.
Zach Wilson.
Which in fairness is a very, very difficult throw to make. And I would say the middle of the road guys, I think I read this one time in one of Sando's quarterback articles. That's the thing with like Dak and when Jimmy was good and when Carr was good and Cousins, they make it a higher percentage than all the other guys, but they don't make it at the rate in which the other guys make it at the high end. But that, to me, that layered throw between defenders over the top of guys, it's like a touch long pass. It's very, very difficult, but that is the NFL. And that at the highest level, like you have to be able to make it. Not everything is just, I'll just throw a jump ball to George Kittle and he'll bail me out, right?
Right.
There's a touch. Even it's some of his completions are when he scrambles and dumps it to a wide open guy. It's a good play, but it's an easy throw in the NFL level for good players, right? Like that top 15 guy, if they're in the position where the guys are going to hit that 99% of the time, right? From Dak to Mahomes.
I don't want to, dig up old skeletons, John, but it's part of what stood out, I thought, about Trey Lance in camp, right? Is that he wasn't making just that throw that gets put on a platter for you.
But he doesn't. Like that's his limit. Like he's not an accurate guy. He doesn't have touch. That's the knock on him. He doesn't have touch. Zach Wilson, no touch. Mitch Trubisky, no touch. Like no touch. Like you can't play in the NFL. Like this Kaepernick, remember, didn't have touch.
Yeah.
Cam struggled with no touch, but he was way better than all those guys, right, over the course of his career. And he could hit so many big passes. Like Colin early in his career could get away with the no touch because he was such an explosive passer down the field and as a runner. And once the running element left, like that was the thing with Trey Lance, like there was no running element, right? His runs, he wasn't a very fluid runner. So it's like, wait, you have no touch and you're not, Kaepernick or Cam Newton? Like what are we doing here? And that's with Purdy. He just has a very good feel for what he is, like just his skill set. And that's a huge part of being a good athlete, right? Whatever pro sport you're in, like knowing what you do well. Most guys aren't like fucking Ken Griffey Jr. or Patrick Mahomes, where it's like, I can do everything. Like usually people have some limitations, but you just kind of have to figure it out. Like ultimately Brock, you notice like when he scrambles, and to me, this is a good trait. He doesn't really scramble to run. He scrambles to kind of keep his eyes up. And they showed him a couple times today, eyes up to throw. Russell had that forever. Back when Deshaun was with the Houston Texans and with Clemson, he was really good at that, like moving the eyes up to throw and make an explosive play. How many explosive plays happen when you scramble outside the tackle box with Josh Allen, Mahomes, Russell for his whole career, Deshaun when he became a star? That is Rodgers. That's when I eviscerate you, right? And that some guys get out there and they either short circuit or they never even get out there, and he's natural at that, like the instinctive level.
Yeah. I thought his best one today, I mentioned several throws, but two more to mention. And one was what you're describing. The other thing he's proving to be really good consistently at, right, is the step up in the pocket. What just happened?
Josh Dobbs just made an incredible play.
Oh, I
rewound. This guy's having like the Browns career renaissance. Insane.
It's really crazy. The thing that Brock is like one of the ones you're talking about today, I think, steps up and he does that thing really well where he steps up and moves to his right and then throws on the run. And he hit Debo in the second half of the second possession of the second half. He hit Debo on one of those, steps up, moves to his right on the run. He loves kind of throwing like a shortstop, doesn't he? Kind of on the run, one leg, kind of front leg kicked out. And then the other throw on the eyes up play there was a throw to Ayuk on the right hash where Feliciano, do you remember this play? Gets trucked. Vita Vea Feliciano's on his back and Vita Vea is at Brock Purdy's feet in half a second. And Brock kind of similar to when he had to pump and hit Kittle last week. he kind of felt it, but kept his eyes up and delivered the ball to Ayuk. It's just, it's complete.
Well, I'll give you a good example of like
Level
Jimmy
stuff.
Garoppolo when the 49ers had really good teams. How often did he kind of end up sometimes in a position and then miss the guy behind or skip the ball to him?
Back foot it.
Yeah, but not even the pocket one where he back foots it, where he kind of scrambles like, oh, Jimmy's kind of making a play, and then the ball doesn't end up. You're like, guy was open.